don't ghost. So if you're dating somebody a few times, if you're talking to somebody even a few times online, instead of just disappearing, say, this isn't really what I'm looking for. Just you show them how easy and safe it can be to do the right thing. And that can hopefully train other people to avoid doing it in the future.
Definitely. So one of the things that I teach in relationship is called upfront contract, which helps in business, right?
Oh, I like that.
But it also helps in relationship. When I first met my wife, we talked over the phone for hours, and because we were a blind date. And when we kind of knew that we have passed the area of admiration and we kind of liked each other, so now let's meet and sit down and talk. We went to a restaurant and she said, look, before I order dinner, there's certain things that I got to tell you that I look for a relationship, and you got to know what they are. And if you don't agree with any of them, we can just order drinks and then call it a night.
Coming up on this week's episode of the Ask Women podcast, we break down some of today's top dating terms. And not the nice terms, but the negative terms like ghosting and benchwarming and zombieing, all things that you've heard of, may not know what they mean. I did not know what they mean, but we break down why people are using these terms, why these terms are happening to you, and how you can avoid having them impact you. We have Mason Farmani on our show today, and he is going to explain to us how you can protect yourself from enduring any of these terms and having them impact the way that you date and have relationships. So keep listening.
I appreciate it, and I'm grateful for the privilege of being on your show and talking to your audience.
Yeah, I love it. So Mason, you tell me what is going on with these terms? Why are there so many terms being tossed around now? Where are these coming from? Why are they happening? What's happening to society? We have to label everything. I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but what the heck is going on?
Yeah. So I think, it's really important for us to look at how relationships have evolved, right, over the years, and how even love in its essence has not really evolved, right? When we say, I love you, there is a feeling that we feel, and then there's the expression of it that comes out in the language. Now, over the years, that expression has changed, right? So there were years and years ago, for example, before like the Valentine's Day got created. It was a whole different ball game back then than it is today. And one of the biggest things that influences all these days is the social media. Mm-hmm. And as much as we love some of the parts of it that contribute to us, we also know that social media has made us all very unsocial.
Crazy.
Right? And so exactly right. So as a result of these changes that are made through social media, because and TikTok, for example, and Instagram, and somebody picks something that's interesting and they come up with a phrase and everybody repeats it, and then we know now from the psychology that the more things we are introduced to and repeated, the more we are influenced by it. And then when we're influenced by it, then it actually has an influence on our belief system. And then once it's in our belief system, then it's a behavior, right? So we see that there's a lot of these changes that have been made over the years. And then, God forbid, celebrities say some of these things, right? Or do some of these things. Well, now we're all following it. Or if the social influencers are doing something, we're all over it. So in the process of socialization and in the process of changes that have been made in our social life, we have now new behaviors that we have. I don't think, for example.
So I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Do you think they're new behaviors, or they're just behaviors that have always existed, but with labels, and we have different outlets that we can exhibit these behaviors. Because I think being uncomfortable and shying away, it's existed since the beginning of time, right? We just have labels for them now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have different personalities, right? Whether we're extroverted or introverted, that has always been the case. But the way it is displaying itself is different now. So,
Okay.
for example, I'm not sure that breadcrumbing was a thing maybe 50 years ago or 100 years ago.
What's
You know,
breadcrumbing? Because now, because I'm again, I'm telling you, I'm not hip to these things. But it's like
yeah,
laying, it's like kind of teasing, right? It's giving a little
sure.
bit.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think it did. I think it existed 1,000 years ago.
Yeah. So breadcrumbing is sending occasional non-committal messages to keep someone interested without actually committing to a relationship.
I've been doing this since I was 13. I'm just saying. That's what I'm trying to say. I think everything's existed. I think we just have a label for it now. Yeah,
You know,
I've been avoiding going out with people
right?
since I was able to, flirt. Right?
Sure.
I feel like, and again, I'm only like 25 years old right now, so not that long. I'm just joking, but I'm just saying it's been around for a long time, and I'm guessing it's been around for thousands and thousands of years. I think we just now have labels for everything and different mediums for it to happen.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah,
So whether it's
maybe.
messaging or doing it in person.
Right, right. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I've actually researched some of these to see if there's studies done to see if it was or not. There's no evidence of some of these things.
Okay. Yeah.
But,
Right.
maybe it
I'm
is.
saying for
Yeah, yeah.
certain terms, yes, I'm
Sure.
sure some of them are very unique and
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that just generally speaking, to really understand that these are symptoms, right? These are a result of something that is going on inside people.
And
And
what's going on inside people?
yeah,
What is but
so
what so what is the and I we'll get to the terms in a little bit, but
sure,
what
sure.
is the underlying thing that's going on for people that they need to most of these behaviors that we're going to go over, most of these labels are kind of people just being uncomfortable and avoiding people. Like that's
Yeah.
really all that most of
Yes.
them are. It's right. It's
Yes.
our own discomfort.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of it is from avoidance, right?
Mhm.
But where does avoidance come from? Avoidance comes from me being uncomfortable with a certain part of me,
Mhm.
right? That ignites that reaction out of me, that I'm so uncomfortable in
I
this
need to avoid.
situation and I'm going to avoid that situation. So
Mhm.
maybe it would be helpful if I just give you an example. I have a client that I have worked with, and I've done this for a long, long time. And he was not able to get in public. And if he did, he would sweat and he would be very uncomfortable around
Yep.
women. And, through a lot of different exercises that we did, we discovered that what happened to him as a child was that one of his parents, dad, kept on pushing him to go talk to girls, right? Like
So
go,
he did
because
the
he was a
opposite.
womanizer, right? The
Right.
dad is a womanizer. So he is like, oh my God, you're my male son and you got to be displaying this stuff and you should do. So he was not ready to do that. He wasn't developed enough to do that, right?
Mhm.
So he keeps pushing him and then he chooses to be the opposite
Mhm.
because
His
he was not
coping
looking up to
mechanism.
his dad, right? Him being a womanizer, he was like, I'm going to be opposite of everything you do in
Yeah.
life, right? And a lot of those decisions now we know that actually have an effect on our behavior and our belief system. So we're completely going to do something different.
Mhm.
Now, once we were able to figure out the birth of it, then using neuroscience and epigenetics, we were able to undo that behavior and then replace that behavior with something that he chooses with free will, rather than have that incident in childhood rule his life,
Hmm.
right?
All these, yeah, negative thoughts around it. That's crazy. That's
Yeah,
amazing that you were able to help him in that way. That's unbelievable.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's really an important thing that we all understand, because a lot of times people say, the people that I work with, they're like, well, I've always been this way.
Hmm.
Well, you got to figure out who that I is,
Hmm.
right? Who
Yeah,
is
I made
that?
this choice because this keeps me safe.
Right. And then
or
you got to
or
figure,
stops me from being something I don't want to be, right? So it's
yeah,
very limited. Yeah.
totally.
And I love
But you
that.
got to also figure out that if I made this choice, right, as a result of a reaction to an environment, for sure, right? But I made this choice, then the only person that can reverse that is I.
Yeah, me. That, yeah. That is
I
very
can't sit
true.
around and wait for my environment to change for me to change this behavior that doesn't contribute to me.
Yeah. So let's go over some of these terms, because I really just wanted to go over them because I thought they were
Abs-
really interesting and fun
Absolutely.
and cute. So I'm just gonna go through each one, and I'd love for you to explain. So let's start
Perfect.
with an easy one, like ghosting.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm gonna read the definition, and then okay, but when
And we'll get
someone
into it. Yeah.
abruptly cuts off all communication without explanation, leaving the other person wondering what went wrong. That's what it means.
Yeah, right. And it happens so often in our lives, right? So now you're either ghoster, right, or you're a ghostbuster,
Ghosted. Yeah. Oh, right.
right? Or ghostbuster, right? Ghosting, right? So the way it works is that there's something that has happened in our relationship, and it's not working for me anymore. And rather than talking about it, I'm just going to cut all communications with you, leave you in a torture of figuring out what it is that I could have done. And as we know, the human mind is going to go crazy. What maybe it was this, maybe it was that, and it's really a terror act, in my
It
opinion,
really
right?
is one of the most selfish acts. Even though I know you're trying to protect yourself, I get it. It is one of the most
Yes.
selfish acts you can do.
Yeah. And the person who's being ghosted keeps on reaching out and saying, oh my God, what happened? I want to learn. I want to do this. The relationship is important to me, all the things that we have at our disposal. And yet they're still not coming along and they're still not doing any of that.
Yeah. Is there
Now,
something, so as the guys who are
yes.
listening right now, is there something that guys can do when they get ghosted? So either it's acknowledging that this has nothing to do with them, number one, right? Or is there a way to get the ghoster to admit like why she's ghosting? Is there a way to open up that ghoster so they don't feel so uncomfortable, to like give them that safe place to actually open up and say, you know what, I'm just not feeling this right now. This is not the right
Yeah.
relationship for
Yeah.
me. How, is there a way?
Well, so if you're able to reach out, right, and just create a safe environment for a conversation or discussion, it it has a very rare chance
Yeah, but it
of
increases the
coming
likelihood.
through. It increases the life. What I think it does actually, it's helpful for your own healing, because you can just say that I did everything in my
Mm-hmm.
power possible to make this come to surface and we can resolve it, but they didn't have enough guts or whatever it is that we want to call
Yeah,
it to come through,
to
right?
face it. And
So I
that's the way to
think
look at it as well, is to look like this is not somebody that I want to be in a relationship with.
yes,
Yeah, because they're
yes.
going to do this every
Most
single time.
importantly,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
One thing I do want to say before going through the rest of the list, this is a
Sure.
big thing that I tell to the people that I work with, and it's do unto others. I know everybody says this phrase a lot, but if you do not like any of these things being done to you, teach others how easy it is to not do these behaviors by not doing them. Don't
Yeah.
ghost. So if you're dating somebody a few times, if you're talking to somebody even a few times online, instead of just disappearing, say,
Right.
this isn't really what I'm looking for. Just you show them how easy and safe
Yeah.
it can be to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And that can hopefully train other people to avoid doing it in the future.
Definitely. Definitely. So one of the things that I teach in relationship is called upfront contract, which helps in business,
Oh,
right?
I like that.
But it also helps in relationship. When I first met my wife, we talked over the phone for hours, and because we were blind date, and when we kind of knew that we have passed the area of admiration and we kind of liked each other, so now let's meet and sit down and talk. We went to a restaurant, and she said, "Look, before I order dinner, there's certain things that I got to tell you that I look for a relationship, and you got to know what they are. And if you don't agree with any of them, we can just order drinks and then call it a night. But if you do agree with them, we can order dinner." And she had a list of things that she just basically said, "I'm in school, and this was years ago. I'm in school and nothing can disturb my classes. I'm only in a relationship for a year, and then I think marriage. I am not going to
Can I
move
ask you a
in with you."
question?
Yeah.
So something like that can be very off-putting for people. So is that basically saying also if you don't like a very upfront and forward personality, you're out.
Yeah. It
Right. So this
says
so the contract
something.
may not work for everybody because it might be a turnoff for some people.
Well, but you got to know what you want, right? As
Yeah.
a man or as a woman, you have to know what it is you want in a relationship. And you have to find your own way to communicate it, whether
Yeah.
you want to sprinkle it in there, right?
Yeah. I think
Or
yes.
right? You want to make sure that if you're able to, and then one of those could be that, look, if things don't work out between us, are you the kind of person that's going to talk to me,
Yeah.
or
Do
are
we
you the
talk about
person
it
that's
or do
going
you
to
run away?
run away, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah. And I
work it
think I
out
think
at the
those are interesting
beginning.
conversations to have up front as well. That they could be even first date conversations. Like rather than looking at the other person and say like, are you the kind of person who runs away? Or do you tell but you can do it less
Yes.
attackingly
Your
up
own
front.
style.
Yes, your
Right,
own
right.
style to
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
release things out. Telling a
Right.
story about another person and seeing how that person reacts to. So there's different ways of doing it. Okay, let's go
Totally.
on
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the next
Sure.
term. So breadcrumbing
Okay, so Brett, come in. Go ahead. You're going to
is
read it.
sending occasional non-committal messages to keep someone interested without actually committing to a relationship.
Yeah. So again, this really depends on the kind of relationship you're looking for, right? I mean, I work with people that are like heavily involved in their businesses, and they are really have no time for a relationship, and I help them create balance in different areas of their life. But if that's what you're going to do, then you got to tell that woman up front, look, I am a busy executive, and I only have time for occasional dates, and I don't really have time for committed relationships. So if this is something that you and I can work out, great, right? But in the absence of that conversation, you're
Right. It's
again,
just yeah. It's
right?
you putting out what you want, her putting out what she wants, and mixing.
Yeah, and then she was like, "Oh, exactly. That's exactly what I want. I can come in for occasional dinner or
Mhm.
sex or whatever it is, right?" And then, yeah,
Or
perfect,
that's not my
jackpot.
thing. I'm really looking for somebody that I can see 3 times a week who lives in
Exactly,
the same
right?
city. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah,
where you
yeah,
get honest answers. That's the wonderful thing. That's when you leave everything up to like fate, I guess, right? Or leave it
yeah.
all up in the air without things being said. You don't really get what you
Well, I
want.
think the most dangerous thing is when you get two avoidant people together,
Oh God, yes.
right?
Or it's beautiful. All right,
Well,
we're going to avoid everything. There we go. We'll have a blissful marriage. We'll never talk about anything. I know.
well, we're
It's
very
but it is. It's
temporary.
whatever kind of works for you. But these things, like what you're advising, are ways to avoid pain, confusion,
Yes.
frustration, and just be more confident in life.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I think you're actually kind of right because if I'm avoidant and you're direct, I'm gonna be tortured all the
Oh,
time,
tortured. Both of you
right?
are going to be tortured.
Yeah, yeah. Because
Yes.
like I'm gonna be direct to you all the time, and like I don't want to talk about this. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's too
Right? This
uncomfortable for
is
me.
it's too uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you get too avoidant people, then that's not a connected relationship,
Right.
right?
But it might be perfect for both of them.
You're sweeping everything under the rug,
Yeah.
and then it
My
could
husband 10
become
years
an
ago would have
issue.
loved that. He'd be like, great, let's Put it under the carpet. Yeah.
Yeah, but doesn't it come out every once in a while? Things that you have
100%. It
to,
came out as
yeah,
tension, as arguments, as frustration. Yeah. That's why
yeah,
then
yeah.
you do work on these things. And
Definitely. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So I have one thing that I want to tell
Yeah.
your audience that the advice I always give people is that when you're dating, act like you're married.
Mm-hmm.
When you're married, act
Act
like you're
like you're
dating,
dating. Yeah.
right? Because if you are dating and act like married, you deal with all the issues that come up.
Mm-hmm.
You don't sweep them under the rug, and then as soon as
Yeah.
the paper is signed, you feel entitled and oh, I
Yeah.
can't
And like,
believe
let's
you
deal
did,
with this now. Yeah.
right?
I agree with you.
Then that's when you bring the flowers, and then you really romance your husband,
Yeah.
your
I
wife.
totally agree with that. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Benching, keeping someone as a backup while pursuing other romantic interests. You engage just enough to keep them around, but don't prioritize them.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's talk about
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's sort of
unfair.
self explanatory. Okay.
Yeah,
Orbiting.
yeah,
When someone
yes,
cuts off direct contact but continues to engage with you on social media by liking posts or viewing stories.
yeah. Like they were not done with you, right? And yet they are just, they're still
Yeah.
doing
They're still
something
in
to be
your
connected to you.
sphere. They're assholes. So rude.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Cut
Yeah.
them off,
Yeah. Cut them off
right?
completely.
Yeah,
I agree with
unfollow them.
you. Okay, catfishing, pretending to be someone else online to deceive another person, usually in a romantic context.
Yeah. So this one, I always say you got to do your due diligence with people.
Yeah.
If before meeting them, see if you can do a video chat with them. Do your due diligence to make sure they are the person. Look them up online and do whatever it is. Here's an area that I find, especially the younger generation, they're not willing to do enough due diligence, and they're willing to be surprised. So I always say, like, get on the phone before meeting this person. Why would you want, especially with women?
Hmm.
And they're like, well, nobody does that. I was like, well, do it for you.
Yeah,
Don't do
exactly.
it because the population of the
Yeah, you follow
hundreds.
your own rules of what makes sense for you to make sure you're a real
Yeah,
person. I
totally. And
totally
then you
agree.
got to follow your intuition. You got to figure out, like, okay, there's something here that doesn't make sense. And
Yep,
I want to dig rather than put myself in a situation that could be very uncomfortable.
exactly. Oh, be safe. Rather be safe than sorry. Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay,
Definitely.
cuffing season refers to the colder months, fall and winter. We're in cuffing season right now. Actually, right
Yes.
after Halloween, I think is when it starts. When people seek out relationships more than during other times of the year.
Yeah. I mean, I hear this all the time where the in the summer months there are a lot of parties. You
Oh
want to
yeah.
go and you want to have a great time. You don't want to be attached to anyone. You want to flirt. You want to do whatever it goes afterwards. But during the winter months, there's not too much of that, and it's cold and it's depressing, and you want to have someone to hang on to. But then, as soon as the spring and the summer starts, they dump you. So you've got to be, and I think that's called freckling, right? That, then they want to go have a fling for the
A
summer,
seasonal fling that starts in the summer but fizzles out when the weather gets cooler, much like freckles fade away. Oh, interesting. Okay. Because
right?
it's more
Right.
serious. That's so interesting. It's like that the summer fling becomes more serious when it gets to winter because you have to start making cuddle.
So usually speaking, the freckling goes away after the summer break.
Mm.
And then, so this is a
Cuffing
whole
season's
different,
the opposite.
exactly, exactly.
Interesting. All right,
Right.
let's take a quick break. I want to come back and we have a whole bunch of other terms to go over. So we're going to take a quick break, hear from our sponsors, and then we will be back with Mason Farmani. All right, we are back, and we're going to dive into zombieing. When someone who ghosted you suddenly comes back into your life without explanation as if nothing happened. I have had this in my life with friends, and I freaking hate it. I've let them
Yeah.
back in, but I there's always like this thing. You can never fully be connected to them again until whatever happened gets spoken of. I hate it.
Let me ask you. So why you wait? Why did you wait, or why did you not confront that person?
I always confronted that person. That person never wanted to they're an avoidant. They are
Yeah.
and still are a huge avoidant.
So if
And
they come
so
back,
what?
if they come back, when they come back, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
zombieing is. They find all of a sudden show up,
Yeah.
and
Because they're over
if
it, but they don't want to talk
they're,
about it.
yeah, yeah.
Often.
So this is exactly, you can't get resolved until you're resolved, right? And you can't
It's not
have a
repaired.
relationship with that person. So I would say if this is a romantic relationship, well, first of all, we can't get back until we discuss what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just make that a rule and you say, gosh, love to see if we can make that work out, but I can't have the same thing that happened before happen again. I want to know what happened.
Yeah. So
And
we can commit to not doing that to myself again.
if they're not willing to do that, I promise you 100% they're going to do it to you again.
100%.
And
Mm-hmm.
you got to be strong enough to say no.
Yeah. It's not good enough for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
agree. I totally
yeah.
agree with
A
that.
lot of these things, I think, also is just really knowing your own value,
Mm-hmm.
both as men and women, right?
Oh,
And
I agree.
sticking to that rather than just giving into all these things.
Yeah, you're like, okay, you can treat me like that, and I'll just accept you back because I really like you. And the truth is that about 90% of the time, the people who do these things to you are going to respect you more and not do it again because you
Yes.
have a boundary in place where you say, hey, like, listen, I'm totally excited that you're reaching out again. Love it. I really enjoy being around you, but I'm not going to invest in this until I get a better understanding of what happened last time and why this won't happen again. And if that makes them run for the hills, again, as you just said, they're going to keep doing it to you. But hopefully, it will give them space and safety to say, yeah, I just like, I freaked out, or
Yeah.
this happened, or whatever it was. They will reveal it to you.
Yeah, yeah. And you have to know that all these things happen because there is a certain amount of deficiencies
Yeah.
inside of our psychology. And until those people actually go and work on these things are not going to go
No,
away.
they're going to pop up over and
So,
over again.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you don't want to create more mental health issues for yourself by being around these people that haven't worked out their mental health issues,
Exactly. And the thing
right?
is, to be honest and fair, most people have these things, right?
Right.
Most of us were
Yeah,
raised in a
in one
time
way or
where there
another.
wasn't so much open communication and we did sweep things under the rug. I would say the majority of us were brought up that way. So we've got some damage and some past programming. So I think really providing a safe place to have these conversations so that people can think like,
Yeah.
oh, why do I do this? That I think is the most helpful thing for a relationship because they may be deficiencies that they may not work on personally for themselves, but that you can work on together.
Yeah. And I think that if you've been in a relationship for even a short period of time and you have your antennas up and you're not in
Mm.
denial, the writing is always on the
Yes,
wall,
100%.
right? So it's really, I think that if you're seeing it, it's your responsibility to create a safe environment for that
Yeah,
conversation to come up.
yeah.
Do
And a
you
great way to
think?
do that, I'm just curious. I've noticed that this happened the past
Yeah.
few times that we've hung out. I'm just curious, like, what's going on?
And you
Because this
don't
is how it
start.
feels for me.
Exactly. And you don't start with blame or criticizing,
No. And then
right?
they're just going to disappear.
You're right, because yeah. So I always say if you want to create a safe environment, which is really the environment that can produce something and not destroy something, is start with valuing what you have, right? Like, I really enjoy being with you, or I really enjoy the relationship we have. And something has come up that I think that if we discuss it, it will make us stronger,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then you set your intention,
Yep.
right? The
If that's where
intention
you're
of the
coming from. That's actually
conversation,
a very
that's
good way of phrasing it. I like that.
right.
To make us stronger, that we know these things about each other.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like we have a future together, so I want to make it stronger, right?
Yeah. Oh, I love
And
that. Especially coming
then
from a man, that's amazing.
yeah. Oh my God. That's when your masculinity comes out,
Mm-hmm.
right? And actually shows that you're interested.
Yep.
And then you also have displayed some vulnerability which is a key factor, I think, in a great relationship for men
100%.
that they're getting used to that they didn't used to have before,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I really want, and I'm something has happened, and I'm curious to your point, right? I'm curious to see your point of it because I don't want to make assumptions. I want to have this conversation. And then you just lay it out without making blames or criticizing the person, and you come from curiosity.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. Everything that you just said
Thank you.
is
Yeah.
is perfect. I agree.
Right.
I'm going to go to the next phrases. Love bombing. When someone
Oh,
showers you with excessive attention and affection early in a relationship to win you over, often followed by manipulation or control. It's part of narcissism,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yes,
Or it can
but
be.
yeah, it can be, right? So, so this is where it happens both on men and women's side. Like they come in and take care of you, and they make you dinner, come over, and da da da, make this amazing fire, whatever, right? And then you're like, wow, this is feels really
So
good.
nice. Yeah.
Gee, this is nice. I mean, what men or women don't want to be taken care of? So you show up and you're like, you give in, right? Because you're being taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't have to do any of this stuff. And then all of a sudden, little by little, there is a little, well, you know what? The way you did this was not really appropriate. I want you to do it this way. The way
Mm-hmm.
you reacted to this. Then all of a sudden, the demands start to come in. And now it's what I call a silent contract.
Mm-hmm.
I took care of you and I
Now you have
do
to do
all
these
this
things for me.
stuff, and then you have to do, and then you're like, well, I didn't never sign that contract. You just basically did all this stuff. I
I think
thought,
I was a love bomber on a very low level. I think I was before. I'm like, wait, I did all these things for you. Now you can't do these things. And I would get mad. You're right. That is interesting.
yeah,
I never
yeah,
really thought of love
yeah.
bombing that way. But that does, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And if you see it, I mean, so what do? That's the big question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is somebody's coming in and they're just showering you with love and affection and taking care of you, buying you stuff, right? So you got to just really stop and say, you know what, I really would like to take this a little slower,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or show it in your action if you're not the person that can actually verbalize these things, right? But then wait for signs
Mm-hmm.
as you're taking it a little slower. And just know that this is really not proper behavior to get showered with so much love at the very beginning. Every person has to go 1 inch here, 1 inch there. Otherwise, you're getting into an unhealthy dynamic.
Yeah. And the truth is that some people don't have this training. I've talked about this before
Right.
in my inner circle coaching sessions, but I talked about how when I first moved to Los Angeles and I was dating my husband, and I was attempting to make female friends over here. And he saw me time and time again find a female that I really liked, and I would pounce on them. I would like love bomb them, but we call it pouncing, right? Where
Yes.
I would just want to hang out with them all the time. And my husband finally said to me, "Stop pouncing on women. They're going to run
Yeah.
away with you from you constantly
From you.
if you do that."
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest lessons. And I didn't know that. I wasn't ever taught. I just knew that I'd have a really good time with people. We'd be intense for a couple of weeks, and then they would slowly start to avoid.
Disappear.
And I didn't
Yeah.
realize that it was because I was pouncing on them. I wanted too much from them too fast and all the time. So him advising me not to pounce, which I probably thought in the very beginning, but when I finally internalized it, I was like, "Oh, this makes sense. Makes total sense."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You had a gap and you were trying to fill, but you were coming from survival
Mm-hmm.
rather than coming from creativity and coming from a place
And
of
confidence
love and confidence.
and
Yeah. So
believing.
there,
Yeah,
yeah. So the source of that usually is there's an area of insecurity.
totally.
And that's why people go to showering with love and pouncing, as you mentioned it. Yeah,
Yeah.
but you got to take care of that gap. You got to figure out why is it that this has happened to me.
Mm-hmm. And that's some of the work that you do is figuring out people's gaps.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
which
yeah.
I
And
love.
I
And I think
always
I think it is important because you're right. It's just going to keep repeating itself. So I'm going to go to the ones that
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sure.
So cushioning,
Yes. Go ahead.
keeping potential romantic interest on the side to soften the blow if your current relationship doesn't work out. Well, that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yes. Yes.
Slow fade, gradually reducing communication and engagement with someone until the relationship fizzles out, as opposed to abruptly ghosting. Okay, that makes sense too. Haunting, when
Yeah.
someone who ghosted you, oh, we had this already, reappears in subtle ways, like liking your old social media posts. That was zombieing as well. Stashing, when someone is dating you but avoids introducing you to friends or family, especially keeping you hidden
Yeah.
from their social circle.
Yeah. So there's something missing in the relationship, right? And they're wanting to date you and have a good time with you and all of that, but they're not willing to bring you into their social circle,
Yeah.
right? Now, you have to question whether there's also something else going on there, right? Like there's another relationship, there's an ex, there's something else happening that they're trying to not have to confront, or they're just embarrassed to introduce you, in which case you got to know what your value is again.
Yeah, this isn't
And
the kind of relationship I want.
yeah,
My
and
relationships, we introduce each other. But there might be some people, that's why open communication is so helpful, because some
yes,
people may have been like, listen, I've introduced the past four girls that I've seen to my friends. They get
right.
really settled into my friendship group, and then we end up breaking up. And so this is the pattern I've chosen to, but it really, bringing these things up, confronting them when you notice that something is happening, is
Yes.
what gets the information out there, rather than just avoiding on your own or getting mad or breaking things off.
Yeah, and then now there's another thing to consider here is that there is a healthy way of not introducing somebody you just started dating
Yeah.
to your circle, right? You got to make sure it's like when you have employees that there's that 90-day
Yeah.
probationary period.
Yeah.
You got to date them for a period of time and make sure this is working and this is happening. And then usually what happens is you go in to the outer circles to the inner circles.
Hmm.
Like if you have kids, you want them to be like the last people that they get introduced to. You know, is it passing the less critical
Yeah.
sections of my friendship first before I go in? So that's a healthy way of doing it. But then again, if you're not sure, asking questions and confronting it is in a healthy way is the right thing to do.
Yeah. I'll tell you a quick story. But so I'm part of a monthly women's healing circle that I absolutely love. But I brought one of my really close friends there um, recently. And I feel like we talk very openly about everything, and this person knows everything about me. But even being at that circle, and the way that I was sharing in there and the way that she was sharing there, even though we probably heard it from both of us before, it heightened our closeness, because there was
Yes.
different ways that we were sharing this. We were being a little bit more vulnerable than we typically are. I'm sure we were just, we joke around about these insecurities when we talk to each other, whereas in this circle we were both really vulnerable, and it peeled off a layer, um, in a good way, that had us connecting on a deeper level. So my point
Mm,
being is that every time that you bring things up for a discussion, it can blow up in your face, right? Or it can bring you closer together. So the truth is that you get to see what's there when you talk about things. So there's
yeah.
only, like, it's a win-win every single time.
Yeah, yeah. I think the key thing what you said is vulnerability,
Yeah.
right? If you're being vulnerable and the other person that is hearing this story cannot connect to your vulnerability, there's something missing in your
Yeah.
relationship, right?
Totally.
Because they're trying to protect their own vulnerable. They can't cross that
Yes. They
line,
can't process it. Yeah. You're right.
right?
You're absolutely
So
correct.
because if they understand yours, that means they have to understand their own.
Very,
So,
very true.
right? So you want to just kind of like, and I say this all the time that you don't want to look at that situation and say, "Oh my God, why did I become vulnerable?" No, it's not your fault. It's
Yeah.
their fault that
It's
they
why
couldn't hold
couldn't
your
they handle
heart.
my vulnerability?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you're right.
a lot of times we take that as a failure in vulnerability where it shouldn't be. It's really because the other person couldn't hold your heart.
Yeah. I love that. I do. Okay. I want to do one last one, which is cloaking. When someone not only ghosts you, but also blocks or deletes you from all platforms without any warning, making it impossible to contact them. I feel like this is the
Yeah.
healthiest way to eliminate somebody from your life. But if they just ghost, like it, I feel like if somebody's ghosting like that, something
Yeah.
bad happened, right? Something's been done and they can't deal with a certain behavior anymore. And conversations have happened and you have not heard it. Like, I feel like that's
Yeah.
saying, do not want you to contact me. Don't try to repair this. I've attempted multiple, and maybe I'm wrong about that, but I feel like that's when cloaking is
It's
used. So there's something for
still,
you to look at for yourself. That is
yeah,
when it might be your fault.
it's still in avoidance, right?
Yeah.
Because you would have the communication. You would say what happened and then you cut off, right? That would be the
Right.
healthy way of doing it.
But I think that most people think that it's ghosting when they may not have actually been listening on the upfront.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You need to definitely, I think the first step is looking at your own accountability,
Yeah.
always, right?
Always.
Where am I accountable in this relationship? When did this all happen that I may not have looked at it? And then if but you can't also drive yourself nuts and
Right.
crazy by going in and doing self criticizing because you don't know exactly
Right.
where.
You don't have all the information at that point.
Needle in the haystack. How do
Mm-hmm.
you know what it was?
Mm-hmm.
So I always say, do what it is that you needed to do. And then if it's still the answer is not coming in, let it go.
Yeah.
You can't be responsible for their shortcoming
Yeah.
of not wanting to confront.
Yeah. I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of these terms. I think more so what we learned is about how to look within yourself to decide when something's right for you, and
Yes.
also about really about how to treat other people so that they can learn that they don't have to be so afraid
Yeah.
to be open and honest with you. I
Yeah.
think that's what
Yeah.
we learn from this.
Maybe I can leave your audience with the homework that I do with
Yes, I would
my
love that.
clients. Yeah. So I think that you have to know what it is that you want in a relationship, and the best way to do it is to actually write it down. So the homework I give my clients is to write down, who do I want in a relationship? Who do I not want in a
Yes.
relationship? Right? So that you have clarity. And then what you do, just like when you go apartment shopping, you put numbers next to them. What is the
Yes.
number one priority? What is the second priority? Right?
Yeah.
The same thing with who you don't want to be. And then every time you go on a date, you come back and you actually go through your list. You may want to change some of the items. It should
Yeah.
be an evolving list, right? But when you have a clear idea of who you want in a relationship, the game is so much easier. You come in, you're like, oh my God, this person was totally narcissistic. I could see it from the moment I walked. That's not who I want.
Yeah.
And then the list should be more of an adjectives and then also really like lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And, like some people say, well, I can't fall in love with a poor artist. But some people say, no, that's my match. That's my fit. So doing that homework, I think, helps you determine what it is you want in your life. So you can actually see some of these behaviors that don't work for you.
I agree. I
The
totally agree.
last disclaimer I want to give is
Yeah.
that this list was only to identify what a poor behavior is and not to ever pick that up as something that you want to do
To other
because you've
people.
been to other
Exactly. And just to
people.
have a name to explain it for yourself and
Exactly.
to say, this happens to a ton of people all the time. You're not the first person who it's happened to.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay,
Right,
wonderful.
right.
Mason, thank you so much for coming on. And if you want to find out more about Mason, go to fermanicoaching.com. And we're going to provide a link as well to this website in our description notes. But thank you so much for coming on.
Great. Thank you. It was a pleasure being with you.
Yeah. Well, new episodes of the Ask Women podcast come out every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific. Sometimes we play reruns. We do. We're sorry, but it's going to happen. We need to take breaks. You get a rerun, but it's still amazing, amazing information. We handpick each and every one of our reruns so that you only get the best of the best from Ask Women. We love you guys. We couldn't do this without you. We'll see you next week.